Hello, and welcome back to Energy Conscious Art. I'm Ross Drago. Each week I take one of my paintings and attempt to explain what it was I was trying to communicate with that painting. This week I'm taking a painting entitled Identity of a Young Woman. It's an excerpt really from one of my books entitled Identity is the Crisis. And there's also a diagram you'll be able to fill out by printing it out from my website, rossdrago.com. So I think you'll find that very interesting. And so, without hesitation, let's look at Identity is the Crisis, first chapter. Chapter 1. Young Woman's Self-Definition. A diagram of our identities. Many years ago, in what used to be the Shattuck Avenue Co-op Market in Berkeley, California, as I walked around a corner inside the market, I came nose to nose with a young woman. We stopped just short of the Eskimo nose rub, and our eyes met. In that timeless instant, I witnessed something that changed all of my thinking and much of my life. I was handed a vision of her identity. A cross-section, like a piece of popcorn cut in half, loomed in front of me. I watched outside of time-space as an experience, any experience she might have, entered into this self-definitional boundary shape. It came in slowly like a slow-motion arrow, entered from one side and continued across the interior of her identity, this given experience now acting like a thin laser beam of light. This light beam struck the opposite wall. The convoluted wall behaved as if it were a polished mirror and reflected the line of light off at an angle and bounced back into the interior, only to strike another wall and continue to bounce off at the odd angles that curved walls caused its reflection to take. The painting I later made, image number 1, may provide a model of this experience. I saw that this slow-moving light beam represented her thought processes. I could see, almost hear her thinking, as, quote, thoughts, unquote, were read out, as this line of light traveled from side to side, bouncing off of walls of self-definition. Each time a, quote, thought, represented by the beam of light, hit a wall of fear or of desire, this impact caused her thinking to take a sudden turn. She identified with these turns as if she were reasoning, as if she were thinking, generating a new insight into an issue. In reality, the energy is merely ping-ponging off walls of arbitrary self-definitions. A simplified example might sound like this. That guy seemed kind of interesting the other night. This thought hits a fear-based wall of self-definition. But did you see the way he looked at my sister? Strikes another wall of desire or confidence. Yeah, but everybody looks at my sister that way. Bounces off another wall of desire. Who cares? Just go for it. Wall of fear. Go for what? I don't even know his name. Desire wall. Dolores knows. Call her. I saw that as every incoming energy entered her specifically shaped self-definition, it bounced off internal mirrored walls of her identity. As it did so, she experienced either an inward curve of fear or an expanding, ballooned outward curve of confidence. She was lucky. Her identity was somewhat balanced. Some people have only walls of identity which are steeped in fear. Such walls create reasoning processes that lead straight to hopelessness and depression. She followed each bouncing wall as if she were reasoning this thing out, as if logic were being unfolded. She identified with each bounce or turn of thought. What I saw in that suspended moment was that I could simultaneously see every thought she would ever have in her life, predict it with a mirror and a pen light, until she changed her self-definition. We excused ourselves and moved quickly around one another. God knows what she experienced looking at me. But going over the experience again and again, I began to understand that we all shared something similar to her. I realized that people did not have an identity crisis. On the contrary, identity itself is the crisis, a crisis that takes place each and every moment and distracts us from actually having the life it promises to give to us one fine day in some non-existent future or in some irretrievably lost moment in the past. From this experience, I devised a simple diagram that anyone can fill out. Although oversimplified, it gives us a place to start seeing our identity instead of identifying with it, and thereby losing our self within that identification. As you will see, there are many uses for this diagram. By filling out the questions on the identity diagram and looking at the resultant shape of our own identities, we may see an image that represents our self-definition as a shape we can superimpose over the shapes of others' identities. This explains many things about our relationship to others. Or we may compare this changing shape to ourselves in time to see how we have grown. We may superimpose it over our partner's self-definition and see alliances, power struggles, attractions, shared fears, and shared confidences. The direction of this book, however, is not to feed still more energy into these identities, but simply to see them for ourselves, so that we may transcend them altogether into the freedom that patiently waits for us beyond our identities. This diagram will start by giving you a clear image of your own self-definition. As your life happens, periodically fill out this diagram again and compare the differences. The diagram is simple to understand. The outer circle represents no fear whatsoever, +5 degrees of confidence, playful and creative delight in that area. For example, if a man filling out the diagram is an athlete and has always spent a lot of time working out, socializing, or having fun with groups of men, and the category of men is to be rated in terms of to what degree is he fearful, neutral, or confident in relationship to men is considered, that person may place the dot high on the confidence circle, around +4 or even +5. This indicates he is very comfortable and even confident and playful around other men. The second circle, marked neutral or 0, indicates no feelings at all of either fear or confidence in that area. Above that are degrees of increasing confidence in that area, and below that neutral circle are increasing degrees of fear. The center of the circles at the number -5 represents extreme fear, something you would not want to go near unless you absolutely had to. The degrees from 0 to -5 represent degrees of no fear at 0 and total fear at -5, in reference to the subjects that are printed around the circle. Each line running from the outer circle straight down to the center is labeled with a name or subject and is the line designated that subject. You are asked to place a dot at the point on that line which indicates your feelings on that subject, between absolute fear at the center and absolute confidence on the perimeter. No feelings would place a dot at 0. Now pause the reading and fill in one of the diagrams. When you are finished, please return to this section. Now that the diagram is filled in, do the next step. Connect the dots with a smooth curving line. You may pause this reading in order to do that. Once all of the dots have been connected into one meandering line that comes around and connects back to itself, you're in a position to do many fascinating things. This diagram reveals our identities and our relationships with others. But please remember, the purpose of this diagram is not to be used to further involve us with our polarized relationships, but the opposite, to free us from identity itself through recognition of unconscious patterns. We can see from this diagram that our hidden fears are fence posts that hold a kind of electric barbed wire fence of self-definition. We roam in a corral that is inside this shape. That is to say, we allow ourselves to only have experiences that are contained within this shape, and we avoid experiences that fall outside of this shape, because this shape literally symbolizes and makes visible the fear border of our identity. We use this inner, invisible fear border to make all of our life's choices and even intellectual responses. For example, let's say that we have great fear, -5, of flying in an airplane. When the phone rings and friends of ours say that they would love to go to Europe with us next summer, we are being taken by the hand and led toward that fear border. As we consider getting taken closer to this fear border of identity, we receive a warning alarm, as if high voltage is running through the wire border, and we begin to feel the magnetic field which registers as anxiety, increasing fear. We immediately say, "Oh, God, that sounds so great. The only problem is," think quick, "I've registered to take 3 classes this summer and I've already paid for them. Oh, wouldn't you know it, I need the courses to keep my credentials." Safe. They bought it. No Paris. No life that threatens to take you where only an airplane can. Our fear of flying has thoroughly placed us in a time that is pre-aeronautical, back to about 1890. My point here is, while we believe that our fears are our secrets, in fact, they determine the total range of our outside experience potential and our possible experiences with other people. Why do we do this? Because we believe that it is the truth, the real, deep down, and our most real identity. Yet, as we may see, the truth of who we are is fearlessness incarnate, as truly everlasting and invulnerable as eternity itself. It is only our identity itself that is being threatened, and never our true self. Thanks so much for joining me. I'm really happy to share these ideas with you, and I hope that they mean something to you. Next week, I'm going to talk about identity in relationship to love relationships, and I hope that you find this interesting. It's designed to give us all a larger picture of what the real process of our love relationships are, because they're designed to bring us closer and closer to our true self, and that includes the difficult times of relationships. And when we understand how identity relates to that, we will understand why love relationships seem so difficult at times, and what the beauty of that difficulty is leading us toward. So I hope that you can join me, and do go to rossdrago.com and download that picture of the diagram, because it's going to be very interesting to compare one diagram to another diagram of friends or partners. And I think you'll find that something that gives you an image and allows you to grow beyond your own identity to a place of greater and greater freedom. Thanks very much. I hope to see you next time.